Right there, Senator Schiff. Great to see you on the show.
Hey,
Thanks for
Jim,
doing
how
this.
are you?
I'm doing fine. Really appreciate the time. I understand this is your first Substack. Is that correct?
It is in this form, certainly, and great to see you. Appreciate your work.
Hey, I appreciate your work as well. Thanks so much. No, I was just laying out for the viewers at home there, and they're chiming in. They're giving their comments as well. This is a slightly different experience than your typical cable news interview, so we'll get some feedback from the viewers out there. But I mean, I think we should just get right to it. I mean, Trump's trip to the Middle East has really put his penchant for corrupt authoritarianism on display. And I was talking about the Air Force One gambit. He obviously wants to take this gift from the Qataris to the tune of $400 million. And I understand you're requesting that the Department of Defense's Office of Inspector General launch an inquiry into all of this. What can you tell us about that?
Well, they've already acknowledged that when they did their legal analysis, and of course, here we're relying on the incredibly independent, objective analysis of Pam Bondi, but they've even acknowledged that it would be unlawful, unconstitutional for them to accept this aircraft, this $400 million gift from the Qataris, if it went directly to the Trump Foundation. So they want to launder it through the Defense Department, which
Yeah.
doesn't make it any more legal. It just pulls the Defense Department into this scheme to enrich the president. And so, what I want to know from the Defense Department is a number of things. First of all, what is this going to cost taxpayers if they have to somehow retrofit this aircraft, if they've got to go through and extensively debug it, make sure that there's no electronic surveillance, if they've got to bring it up to the standards of an Air Force One and all the rest of that? What's it going to cost the taxpayer? How long is it going to take? If this isn't going to be ready for a couple years, it means that basically Trump is going to get this aircraft on his way out the door. And it's really about just the private use of this plane by the president. But also, what is the DoD doing to protect themselves from being a party, willing or unwilling, to this graft, this scheme? What does it mean also for our national security? Because the Qataris aren't stupid. They want something for their $400 million investment. If it
Yeah.
were just a nice gesture, Jim, as the president likes to claim, they would have given you the plane, or
Yeah.
maybe given someone off the street the plane. No, they gave it to the president for a reason.
Right. And to me, I mean, the question I wanted to ask today is, what is this? Oprah, you get a plane, you get a plane. I mean, apparently, Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, wants her own new plane as well. That's been coming out in the headlines today. And you mentioned Pam Bondi, the attorney general, signing off on this. I know that you have chimed in with a tweet about a story that was in ProPublica in the last 24 hours, talking about how she sold between $1 million and $5 million worth of shares of Trump Media the same day that Trump unveiled his tariffs. I mean, the larger picture here, and I've been talking about this on my show, is that they're just doing this in plain sight, just acts of blatant corruption. And the question has to be asked: what can be done about this? I know Democrats are in the minority in the Senate, and over in the House, difficult to hold hearings. But is there any way to shame these Republicans into holding some hearings here?
I think there is. In the near term, probably not to the extent of holding a whole hearing on it. But nevertheless, confronting our colleagues here in Congress with just the blatant graft and the danger that it poses, forcing them not to look away can be really impactful. And to give you one illustration, I put a hold on Ed Martin's nomination
Mm.
for U.S. Attorney in D.C. This was someone with no prosecutorial experience, someone who was a stop the steal lawyer, someone who said we should go easier on people who beat cops, someone who was promoting avowed Nazi admirers. This is a partial list. And the longer we held his nomination, the more that we brought out to the public about his unfitness for office, the bigger a burden it became to the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee, to the point where his nomination went down. They knew that wouldn't pass, and so they moved on. So it can have an impact. That kind of oversight is important. But I think it's even more important vis-a-vis the public. And because the numbers are so big with the Trump graft, it's hard for people to wrap their head around it.
Yeah.
Because it's out in the open, it's hard for the country to wrap its head around it. And in fact, the Trump administration is quite aware of this. The defenders say, well, it's all out in the open, it's transparent, as if transparent corruption makes it any less corrupt. But to give you one other quick illustration, the Trump meme coin
Right.
and this gala dinner they're inviting people to with a promise of access to the president and a White House tour. That meme coin, whether it goes up in value or down in value, the transaction fees all go into the pocket of Donald Trump. It's the most clear graft. But because this is out in the open, in a way, it's really hard for people to understand just how crooked a deal this is.
Yeah.
And I think people think, well, how is this gala different than a campaign fundraising gala?
Yeah.
The difference is this money is not going to some campaign. This
Right.
money is going right into Donald Trump's pocket. And I think we need to spell that out for folks.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when we thought, gosh, when folks are doing obnoxious things for campaign donations, that was pretty bad stuff. And here he's just putting the money in his pockets. I mean, I've been describing it as sort of like those game shows where people run through the supermarket with a shopping cart and just try to pile as many goodies into the shopping cart as possible. That seems to be what he's doing with the White House and what with the presidency. And it seems to me what you need is, I've been thinking about, because lawmakers always come up with clever names for bills. Is there a way we can come up with a scam act, stop corruption and mischief act, and limit the president to just what he's supposed to get paid in office? I don't know. I'm spitballing here, Senator, but it just seems to me this is nuts, and it's almost whack-a-mole. Everywhere you look, he's trying to scam the public.
That's exactly right. And by the way, I like that idea for the title of a bill. I
Please
will
take
put
it.
asterisk and give you credit for that. Um, but the other thing is, and your comment about Christy Nome and the aircraft
Yeah,
is perfect in the sense that they're all trying to get in on the act now.
yeah,
Everybody's trying to cash in. We have this, the real Secretary of State, Witkoff, not Marco Rubio. He's got a very limited profile, but
yeah.
Witkoff is the real Secretary of State. His son is cashing in with the Trump sons
Right.
with a stable coin, another crypto venture that just got a $2 billion infusion from the Gulf.
Yeah.
And everybody's cashing in. Pam Bondi's cashing in. Christine Nome wants to cash in. And you know who we have largely to thank for this? A guy named John Roberts, who just
Yeah.
happens to be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who gave Donald Trump immunity. You give a convicted felon like Donald Trump immunity and you make him president of the United States, and he's going to act like a crook with immunity, which is
Yeah.
what he's doing. And the
He,
people around him, they know they're getting a pardon on the way out the door. So they're acting just as crooked as he is.
he's absolutely emboldened in all of this, and I covered him during the first administration. I think he's far more dangerous this time around. There's no question about it. You know that all too well, Senator. And I was having a conversation about some of this with Ruth Ben-Ghiat yesterday. And while it is kind of funny to laugh at some of this stuff because it's just so outlandish, there is a danger to it, in that as this oligarchy that Trump seems to be surrounding himself with, as they enrich themselves, it almost seems as though the circle can get bigger and more people can get sucked in and pulled in and enticed to join in on the corruption, and that might make all of these characters a little bit more difficult to dislodge from power. I mean, as they accumulate this and amass this kind of wealth, one has to think it makes them harder to beat at the ballot box. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I certainly agree. And I think
Yeah,
probably the case in point is Elon Musk.
yeah,
Here's Elon Musk, in addition to doing the Tesla showroom on the White House grounds, because the stock in his company
yeah,
has been in a nosedive. I think even worse, perhaps far worse, is as Trump has imposed tariffs on these other countries, they're coming to Trump to try to get out from under the tariffs, but they're also coming to Elon. And Elon is pitching them on his Starlink
right.
satellite system. And they recognize, because we see it in leaked cables, they recognize that one way to ingratiate themselves with the administration is to buy Elon's product.
Yeah.
And so, Elon has the most patent conflicts of interest. Uh, and, you know, they fired the head of the Office of Government Ethics who would be policing this stuff.
Yeah.
But
It,
but you're right. And then Elon takes the money he makes from the sales of these satellite systems and plows it into the Trump political operation. After
yep.
that Tesla showroom on the White House grounds, he put another 100 million into the Trump political operation. So if you're seeing ads, I mean, I'm seeing ads promoting Donald Trump. He's not even running for anything.
Yeah.
This is, you know, the oligarchs propping up this corrupt president whose numbers are sinking, and they want to prop him up as long as they can because the gravy train is running, and they want to get that gravy.
Yeah, it's almost like a an SNL skit of a home shopping network, except it's all of Trump's corrupt schemes and scams that he wants to pull over on the American people. You mentioned the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Senator. I have to ask you about this very important case in front of the High Court today about birthright citizenship. It fits right in with all of these other, sketchy, unconstitutional things, dangerous things that he's been trying to do with respect to migrants in this country. Wanted to get your thoughts on that and whether or not the notion of birthright citizenship could be in danger right now, which I mean, that opens up a huge Pandora's box in terms of what can be done to migrant families, mixed status families. These are the kinds of issues that I've been focusing in on this program. A lot of people in your state in fear of this right now.
You know, it's difficult to extrapolate sometimes from the justices'
Yeah.
arguments and whether they're playing devil's advocate or whether they're really the devil.
Yeah.
But what I'm taking away from the coverage I've seen so far is a recognition that birthright citizenship is very clear from the Constitution.
Yeah.
The Trump administration is not going to win on the merits. And so they're shifting to a different objective in that case. And the different objective is to try to strike down the use of nationwide injunctions. And of course, what that refers to is when something unconstitutional, like an attack on birthright citizenship, takes place, and you go to a court for relief, that court has the power to issue an injunction against deporting, for example, people born in the United States because they're citizens, and have that injunction apply nationwide. And what the Trump administration wants to do is they want to stop judges from being able to issue injunctions nationwide, even
Mm,
though they were thrilled to do it when Biden was president.
right.
And but
And the
now
court
they,
shopping that they would do and so on. Yeah.
oh, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So now they want to limit what has been a really important tool to protect the American people against these unconstitutional acts. And it seems like a lot of the argument today by the Trump solicitor and a lot of the receptivity on the bench had less to do with birthright and more to do with limiting this really important
Mm,
tool.
wow.
If they take that action, which I wouldn't be surprised to see the conservative justices try to do it,
Try to
it
carve out a
will
win for Trump in some fashion that might please them. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's worrisome. And I did wonder, there's also a story in the New York Times today. DHS has requested more than 20,000 National Guard members to help with the immigration crackdown. Of course, we know that the National Guard has been used down on the border before for beefing up, security along the border and so on. But a Defense Department official said if the requests were approved, it would be the first time National Guard troops were used to help enforce the immigration crackdown in the United States. And so it sort of ties in with what we were talking about earlier. There's so many different things happening on this front. It's hard to keep track of them all, but to use the National Guard in this fashion would be unprecedented, and I think would cause a lot of fear in a lot of communities. If you're seeing armored carriers and people in their military fatigues conducting operations with ICE and so on, I mean that does not sound like America to me.
No, and I think there are additional problems as well, and that is it's going to inevitably create a conflict between the president and the governors about how these
Yeah,
guards
yeah.
are used. It is going to cause the public to have a different perception of the National Guard and what their role and responsibilities are. I think it will affect military readiness and cohesion. If they're diverted to these other missions, it'll mean that they're less mission capable in terms of the
Mhm.
national security mission that they were really designed for. So lots of adverse impacts. Part of this, I think, is just the continuation of the Trump administration effort at shock and awe, the muzzle velocity Steve Bannon was promoting.
Yeah,
They want to do more and more extreme things, arrest judges, call out the National Guard, send people to maximum security prisons outside the country, violate court orders. I still takes my breath away that the Supreme Court of the United States, this right-wing court, um, essentially orders the president to facilitate the return of someone who it was clear violation of the law
right.
to deport or render. The president is meeting with the president of El Salvador. He could
Yeah,
ask for the return. He refuses to do so. He acknowledges he could just pick up the phone. He's openly contemptuous
yeah,
of both the Supreme Court and the lower court. That is really unprecedented. And for people who might be tempted to think, well, I'm not a suspected gang member. Why should I care about that? If they can grab anyone off the street and give them a label, or violate a court order and send you overseas, or make the argument that as long as they send you overseas before the court can intervene, there's nothing the courts can do, then really no one is safe.
yeah. That is scary. And when you have Stephen Miller going out in front of the White House and saying, "Well, we might suspend habeas corpus, the ability to challenge unlawful detention in this country," that is also a scary thought. And taking away people's birthright citizenship, using the National Guard in this fashion. I mean, it really sounds like a militarized campaign of fear that they're trying to spread throughout the migrant communities in this country. And a lot of these folks just don't know what to do. I mean, Sonia Sotomayor at the Supreme Court today was talking about the possibility, if you take away birthright citizenship, of stateless kids. I mean, just it's astonishing what we've seen take place just in the last 100 days or so. But to see Stephen Miller have the gumption to say that out in front of the White House, I can't imagine a Biden administration official going out in front of the White House and saying we might get rid of habeas corpus, and what the reaction might be to that over on Fox or on the Republican side of things.
It's astonishing. I met with a
Yeah,
group of young people today
yeah,
who are the children of visa holders. So their parents came to the country. Many of them worked in the tech sector, and they're the children of people who came here legally. They have been applying for citizenship, but because the process takes so long, they've turned 21. They've aged out of it, so they've aged out of their legal status. And
mm,
so they had status, they came here lawfully, and then through no fault of their own, they've aged out of status.
wow,
And now they have to worry about being deported. And in a prior administration, you wouldn't have to worry that we would deport folks in that circumstance, but they do have to worry about it. Just over the weekend, I don't know if you saw this footage from Worcester, Mass,
oh yes,
of someone being grabbed by these hooded DHS figures, her daughter screaming. I imagine that's your mother that's being grabbed off the street.
absolutely,
The horror and the heartbreak of it. And it is, of course, designed to frighten people. And
absolutely,
the astounding thing to me is just how quickly they've created this climate of fear, not just in the immigrant community, but at universities, in law firms, throughout society. People worried that a social media post could cost them their job. For a administration that once claimed it was against censorship, we're seeing so much censorship now, and it's awful. And
yeah,
there's only one response to this, and it is that we have to stick together and push back and show courage.
yeah,
When Harvard stepped up against this administration, it inspired other universities to do the same. Of course, when law firms capitulated, it inspired other law firms to capitulate too. So the best remedy here is the contagion of courage.
yeah. And Senator, I mean, you stood up to Trump for years, and I'm sure it must be a big shock to you to see major institutions in this country, the media, law firms, universities, basically bend the knee. And you know Donald Trump all too well. I mean, to me, it is the exact wrong thing to do because it's just like that Supreme Court immunity decision. Any opening he sees, he will take it. he will feel emboldened by those sorts of things, and he preys on weakness, any signs of weakness. That's like showing red in front of a bull, a red flag in front of a bull.
That is so true. And,
Yeah,
very, close to home for you, I'm sure must be this case involving CBS,
yeah,
where Trump sues CBS over a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, a clearly frivolous case.
yeah.
There is no way
Ridiculous.
in the world, if that case went to trial, he would ever win that case.
Exactly.
But of course, CBS is part of Paramount. Paramount wants to merge with Skydance, and Donald Trump can leverage that merger to extract money from CBS.
Yeah,
And you just can't give in to that. You just
yeah,
can't give in to that. Uh, but we saw ABC capitulate and settle a similar and meritless lawsuit by Trump.
exactly.
And when those cases are settled, that money doesn't go to the Treasury.
No,
That money goes into Donald Trump's pocket, right
exactly.
into his pocket. In the
Yeah,
category of getting in on the scheme, you've got Melania Trump is being paid $40 million by Amazon
it's
for
unreal.
a for licensing a documentary about Melania Trump.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I think it makes the case for strong public media in this country. PBS and NPR, they're one of the favorite punching bags of the right, and they're going after it again. I just wonder, in this big beautiful bill that Trump's been talking about, which Republicans appear to be balking at as well, not only because of the cost, but because it's going to go after Medicaid, and it sounds like when it comes to the Senate, comes out of the Senate, it's going to be a very different piece of legislation. But if there's any way to protect public broadcasting, it seems to me it's now more than ever.
I think that's exactly
Yeah.
right. I met with some folks from NPR earlier today,
Hmm.
who are deeply worried about the continuation of public broadcasting at a time when, as you say, it's just more important than ever.
Yeah.
But because their reporting is objective, their reporting is fact based, because they're not willing to carry a party line by any party, they're a threat. They're considered a threat
Yeah.
to the administration, and so they're a target.
Yeah.
It's the same reason they're going after these universities. They think these universities are a hotbed of ideas that they don't like, and so they want to cripple them by taking away their funding. And in the process, they're defunding the golden goose of innovation. I mean, this
Yeah.
partnership between research universities and the federal government has brought about such a dramatic advances in science and in medicine.
Yeah.
What they're doing is just such a boon to China and even Europe and its universities by
Researchers are
increasing.
going overseas. They're saying, "I forget about this. I don't want to deal with this. I'll go to France or Germany." Yeah.
Absolutely.
Incredible. Just incredible.
Well, and I,
Well,
I want to
yeah.
say I really admire your courage as a journalist.
Oh,
I
thank you,
know
Senator.
you put up with hell during the first administration, and you stood tall. There's never been a more challenging time, I think, to be a member of the press. And so I have great respect for what you do, what you did, and hats off to you.
Well, I appreciate that, and what you said earlier about not giving in. That's been my message here. And we either stand up to the bully or we're all in a bunch of trouble. And to me, it's all about not giving into the lies, not giving into the fear. So, and I know that you've been doing that during your time in Congress, and I really appreciate the time. You've given us a lot of time this afternoon. Hope we can do it again soon.
Look forward to it. It's great
All
to see you again.
right, good to see you too. Hope that wasn't too excruciating. I appreciate the time.
You
Thanks a
bet.
lot,
Take care
Senator.
now.
All right, good to see you. That's Senator Adam Schiff of California.